Well, also in Washington for talks, Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky. 4 years on from the Russian invasion, Zelensky continuing to call for more support. Relations with Donald Trump have been mixed. Zelensky's visit this time comes as Ukraine has entered the fray somewhat in the war on Iran, with reports that Ukraine fired on at least one Iranian vessel in the Caspian Sea at the weekend. Well, apart from that, all is still quiet on that US-Iran front. After a fortnight of constant bombing, the skies fell silent at the weekend, with Washington saying they were providing space for talks. However, Iran says no direct talks are underway. The US has dismissed reports that it's running low on ammunition as the war in Iran enters its 5th month. So what might really be going on? Well, to get more insight, we're joined now by General Michel Yakovleff. Thanks so much for your time. Can I start simply by asking you, why do you think we've seen this lull in attacks? What has brought it about?
Well, the lull, first of all, President Trump needs a way out of this war. So it's not by going on bombing, apparently, that he's going to succeed. So he's got to find another way out. And secondarily, there is increasing concern about ammunition, specifically two categories of ammunition: long-range precision strike and tomahawks, kind of, and air defense missiles, the most famous of which is the Patriot. So Trump's charade about the Iranians are calling for negotiations is more a question that he needs a way out, more than the Iranians, apparently.
And when it comes to the munitions question, I mean, the US saying that's not at all the issue, but do we have any idea of the stock that might be in question when it comes to the US?
Yes, there's a pretty precise idea of stocks. Now, they are estimates, but pretty close estimates. For example, the famous Patriot, the defender of your airspace, the stock before the war was estimated to be about 3,000, 3,500. And since this war, and in response to Iranian strikes, by the way, the American forces have expended between 1,000 and 1,500, which means in practice that in 38 days, that was the first phase of the war, the US expended twice as many Patriot missiles as they gave to Ukraine over 4 years, which was 600. It gives you an idea. And the replacement rate is nowhere close enough to meet that challenge in the next few weeks. We're talking years.
Okay, so then where does that leave the United States when it comes to its capacity to intervene in this and other conflicts?
Well, that's the real question for the American generals. To prosecute war against Iran, they have enough. And by the way, they have other less expensive ammunition that they can use. It's just that it exposes the crews to more risk and so on. So Secretary of Defense Hegseth is right in saying that we have plenty ammunition. They have enough to fight Iran. But then America is a global power. And what that means is that fighting Iran curtails today its ability to provide ammunition, missiles to its allies and Ukraine, and it decreases its credibility to fight a war against China. Who knows? Every day, the Chinese are gloating at the pictures of Americans firing missiles, basically.
Okay, so big geopolitical questions there, but you mentioned also Ukraine. And what do you make of this news we're hearing that Ukraine fired on Iranian vessels in the Caspian Sea?
It's yet to be confirmed, but it's kind of agreed language, apparently, that between 1 and 3 ships were attacked. Now, targeted, were hit by Ukrainian drones on the Caspian Sea. That is, the Israelis, by the way, have blasted a ship in the same harbor in March. The idea is to prevent ammunition from Russia being delivered to Iran. How successful is it? I don't know. How dependent are the Iranians on flows of ammunition from Russia to Iran? Quite frankly, I have doubts. Until now, the Iranians have produced about all the kit that they've been throwing at the Americans. So I see that as useful, but possibly more symbolic than decisive.
Indeed, and it comes, of course, as President Vladimir Zelensky is in Washington for talks. But before we leave you, can I ask you, where do you see the end game coming in this US-Iran war?
Well, it's been 6 months, correct? 6 months of what President Trump had dismissively called an excursion. We'll just do a little excursion in Iran. And then for months, he's been saying it's in 2 or 3 weeks. What this shows, and by the way, there was a big war of 39 days, and then a lull, and then a 13-day eruption, and currently a lull. This kind of on and off war can go on for a long time, never say forever, of course. Now, the Iranian regime can sustain this rhythm. The Iranian people, certainly not, but the regime isn't very interested in its own people, apparently. And as for Trump, he says time is on his way, but it's not true. There's the ammunition problem. That will not go away. That will only get direr with every day of firing. And there's the political backlash building up in Washington, and awful polls throughout America. And Congress potentially perish the thought. Congress potentially asserting its duties as a counterbalance to the executive and demanding an end to this war. The calls for money are astounding from Hegseth. If Congress says none of that money is coming until you put an end to this war, then Trump will have to back down. And the only way out in reality is for Trump to back down from this war that he created.
General Yakovleff, we'll have to leave it there, but thank you so much for bringing us your insight. Very much appreciated.
Thank you.